Hi everyone, and welcome back to the course. Since you are already familiar with the loops and the main Python syntax, today we're going to talk about functions. So let's create a new file in our project, and I will name this file functions. So what a function is? Every function has an input, input, and then it has an output. So the most simple way that I like to define functions and to describe them is the following. So usually we have some input or some variables that you pass to the function. Then inside the function, there's some processes that are happening, right? And you don't care about these processes. It could be anything. There is some functionality that happens into the function, and then you have the output, right? So for instance, if the plus sign is a function and you pass to that function 1 and 2, you're getting 3. So your inputs are going to be 1 and 2, and your output is going to be 3. You don't care how this plus sign works. You just care about what you pass, which is 1 and 2, and what you get. So functions in Python and actually in any programming languages are used in order to take some very complex and big portion of your code and completely forget about it by putting it into a function. And then into this function you can pass your parameters as inputs. Then this code can perform what it does, and then you can get the output from that. And I will show you some examples here if it is not clear enough. So let's write here functions, and below I'm going to define a simple function. So let's say that we want to find the square root of a number. How do we do that with a function? Now, firstly, in Python, we define function by the keyword def. Normally, this keyword should be followed by the name of the function. So let's name this square. And after that, you need to create brackets, and in the brackets, you pass the parameters that are inputs. Right? So if you want to find the square root of a number, then as an input, we will pass that number. And let's call this number a. So everywhere where we refer a, this will be the number that we will pass to that function. So next, I will create a variable that will be used as an output, and let's call it sq. So sq would be equal to a multiplied by a. Okay, so this is going to be the square root of a, right? And then in order to use this sq as our output, we'll use the return keyword. So if I write return sq, this means that this function returns or gives the sq parameter as an output. So let's try that out. Now, let's go outside of this function, and you probably already noticed that when you write a function, you need to go one indentation level in order for this code to be considered as part of the function. So let's say that there is some number, okay, that is 5, okay? So now let's say that we want to find the square root of 5. This is 25, right? So we want to use our square function in order to find that. And this is very simple to do. You simply need to do square of the number, okay? And if I run this code, you're actually not going to get anything. And this is because even though we returned the result of this function, we actually didn't print it. So if I write now print this function of the number 5, then you will get the result 25. You can also assign the function run to another variable. So if I do here sq number equals to square of the number, and then if I print sq number, you would still get 25. So as you know, in PyCharm you can use a debugger in order to see how things work, and I will place the red dot right here, and let's see what's happening with the program. So you can see that we're actually running the function with the number 5, and here we assign to a 5, right? So in the function, the number that we pass to it is represented by a, and a is 5. Then on the next line, we are executing this line here, so a multiplied by a, 25, and then we're returning 25. And after we return it, we assign it to this parameter sq number, and then we print it right here in this line. So this is how a simple function works. You can also print the sq number inside the function. So for example, if I don't want that, I can simply do here print sq. So this will actually make sure that we print sq, and this will happen inside the function. This is usually not the best approach, because if you just print sq but we don't return it, this means that our function will not have output. It will not return anything. It will just print what we send to it. So let's return the return statement. Okay, so let's create actually a little more complex function here. I will comment out this one, and our next task will be to create a Fibonacci series up to a certain number. Okay, so if you don't know what the Fibonacci series are, the Fibonacci series are series where every next number is combination of the previous two. So they would be 0, 1, 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 2 is 5, and so on and so on. So let's create a function that will generate a list with certain number of Fibonacci numbers. So let's do def fib for Fibonacci, and then we'll pass one parameter n, and this will be the number of Fibonacci numbers that we want to generate. Then we can write result, and the result could be equal to empty list. We already talked about lists. So let's create a would be equal to 0, b would be equal to 1, and then we can say while a is smaller than n, while a is smaller than the amount of Fibonacci numbers that we need, then we want to do result dot append a. This means that the list that we have here, which is initially empty, we're going to append, or we're going to attach the next Fibonacci number. Okay, so initially the Fibonacci number will be 0, but now here we will update it every next step. So let's do a would be equal to b, okay, and after that b would be equal to a plus b, okay. And so in that way, we'll continuously update a and b, and a would be the next Fibonacci number, okay? So then here you can return result, okay? And after that, let's run the function. So for example, you can do, let's create a number. So let's do f10 would be equal to fib, and then we'll pass here 10 numbers, okay? So we would like to get a list of 10 Fibonacci numbers, right? So let's run that code and see what happens. Actually, let's print it here, and then let's print f10. So f10 would be a list, as you can see here. So if I run that, we would get the Fibonacci series up to 10, okay? Actually, I created this function for up to what number we would like the Fibonacci to be. So when the Fibonacci number is smaller than the limit that we pass here, then this while loop is broken and we return the result. But you can also create it depending on the amount of Fibonacci numbers in the list. So for example, if I would like to change the condition in this while loop, I can do, for example, if the length of the result is smaller than 10, then we will break the while loop. And if I do that, you can see that we're getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Fibonacci numbers, okay? The only difference here is that we're comparing the length or the amount of numbers into the result with the number that we passed. So this is how we're getting 10 Fibonacci numbers in the same list, okay? And see how simple it is. We actually don't care what's happening here inside. We only want to pass how many Fibonacci numbers we want in this function, and then we're getting the result. And this is the idea of the functions, to hide all these unnecessary calculations for the users. Now, another very cool thing about functions is that you can pass default parameters, and I will show you exactly what I mean. So let's say you want to define a function, so let's do def. Actually, first I'm gonna name that default arguments, and by arguments I mean inputs, right? So let's do def ask okay, and let's pass a few arguments, prompt retries, and you can assign the retries to be equal to certain value. For example, here retries would be equal to 4, right? And this means that if I don't pass anything, any argument to retries, it will be equal to 4 by default. If however I pass something, so if when I run the function I write retries equals to 11, let's say, then this will be updated. So this is done so the function does not fail if you don't pass any value to retries, so it would have the value of 4. And then let's do reminder. I will also pass a default value, please try again, right? So this will be our function. Now let's create some logic here. Let's do while true okay will be equal to input prompt. So then if okay is in the following tuple y, ye, or yes, then we'll return true. And then I'll create another if statement. So if okay in and no, nope, or nope, then I will return false, okay? And then we will reduce the number of retries. So let's do retries equals to retries minus 1, okay? and then I will say if retries is more than 0, then we'll raise an error. So we're going to talk about errors later on in the next videos, but here I will raise a value error, and this error would say invalid user response, and finally we will print the reminder. Okay, so this is our function, and I don't know if you guessed what this function is doing, but what it basically does is when you run it, you're passing to the function prompt, which is a user input, and prompt could be either y, yes, or no. Then you have retries. So once you get this prompt, you have 4 retries until you raise an error. And so you can either increase the number of retries or you can change the reminder message, but you don't actually need to assign those. So let's run our function. Now, let's create a variable and let's call it OK variable, and this would be equal to ask OK, and then we are required to pass at least the prompt parameter. So here I will pass hello, and after everything is done, let's print the OK var, because we're either going to return true or false here. So let's run that, and you can see the hello message right here, and after that our function is actually still executing. So now we're into this while loop, and we either need to provide yes or no. So if we don't provide those, then our function will re-execute again, and we'll have 4 retries, and then our function will fail. So if I write something random here, you can see that we are getting message please try again. Then if I write another incorrect thing, we will again get the same message. Let's write some other thing too. And finally, since we have only 4 times, when I do that right now, we're getting an error, invalid user response. And this is because here the times were set by default as 4, and our message was please try again. Now, how about we actually write retries equals to 2, and then let's change the reminder. So the reminder would be different reminder. Okay, so let's run the function again and see the changes. So again we have the message hello, and I would type one time something that is neither yes or no. Let's run it, and you can see that you're getting different reminder because now we assigned some specific value here, so the default value is overridden. And now I will have only one try to write something right here, and then on the next one I will fail. And this is because we no longer have 4 retries but only 2. So this is how functions are working, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. Thanks for watching, and please enjoy the rest of the course.